How many carbs do you need to eat to lose weight? Well, this is a really good question. In the U.S. News and World Reports, they have an article outlining this, and I find it pretty fascinating to say the least. So we're going to break this down, but before we get started, I'm Dr. Nick Zarowski, and welcome to the channel. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you're notified when all the new videos come out. Also, if you want to get my whole library of natural health videos, go to www.drz.tv. Also, if you could, give this video a thumbs up. It'll help it get out to more people. And then as we talk about this, share with me your thoughts down in the comments below. I like to chat with you guys and get a conversation going. It's always fun, and it's a good way to communicate and stay in touch. So let's go ahead and dive in. Do you need to drastically cut carbs, your carb intake, to lose weight? Well, it goes on to talk about there's an array of diets that are based on the idea that our slashing carbohydrates is the key to weight loss. For example, the keto diet emphasizes eating a lot of fats, and the goal is putting your body in the state of ketosis, okay? Now, if you follow my channel, you know what the ketogenic diet is, okay? It's where you're basically going to consume 50 grams or less of carbohydrates. You're going to have high fat and moderate protein. Now, what's interesting is they talk about the ketogenic diet, and then they go on to say that's far lower than the amount of carbs that's recommended by the 2020 to 2025 dietary guidelines for Americans. Those guidelines recommend that carbs comprise between 45 and 65% of your total calorie intake. That means if you consume a 2,000 calorie diet on a daily basis, between 900 and 1,300 of those calories should be from carbs, which means that you consume 225 to 325 grams of carbohydrates, okay? Now, this is pretty interesting to me because on average, the average number of carbohydrates that is estimated that the average person consumes is about 300 or more grams of carbohydrates per day, okay? Now, I'm not like a never carb type of guy. I am a big fan of moderate keto. It's where you eat a little bit higher protein, higher carbohydrates. You're not necessarily in the state of ketosis, but with your intermittent fasting, you'll basically bounce in and out of ketosis still regardless. Now, I tell people eat 100 grams or less, okay? So 100 grams is a very safe amount to fall in, and you're going to lose a tremendous amount of weight. You don't necessarily have to be following the ketogenic diet in order to accomplish some really powerful weight loss goals. Now, consuming between 225 to 325 grams of carbohydrates is a lot. And so when I say consume 100 or less, it's funny because the never carbers come after me and they're like, no, you should consume 20 or less, or I only consume 15 grams of carbs per day, right? But once again, you're going on a very strict diet that probably isn't going to be sustainable for you. And so consuming 100 grams or a little bit less than that, when the average person's consuming 300 or more, is a significant difference. So you can get really far doing that. You don't have to be following the ketogenic diet and doing no carbs. I'm going to go on in this article because they talk about basically the ketogenic diet and how, well, it's not necessarily the healthiest thing for you, which I disagree with. It can be completely healthy and is completely fine to follow. It's a good diet. It's a good quality diet. I just think that you should follow it for like 30 days on and then take a break from it. I don't think it's a permanent diet that you should follow. And most people don't. To be honest with you, most people who tell me they're on the ketogenic diet, they aren't doing the ketogenic diet. They're eating a high-fat diet that's low in carbohydrates and moderate in protein. But it doesn't mean that they're following the ketogenic diet. A lot of times people are following a keto-like diet, which would follow into the diet that I recommend anyway, which is the moderate keto diet, okay? Because you're not following the ketogenic diet if you are not in the state of ketosis, okay? And that's basically what it comes down to. When you are eating in a way that it puts you into ketosis, now you are following the ketogenic diet. If you are eating in a way that is not putting you into ketosis, you are not following the ketogenic diet. It's that simple, folks. So a lot of people will tell me, yeah, I'm following the ketogenic diet. And I'll say, oh, how long have you been in ketosis? Oh, I've never checked. Or, oh, I don't know. And look, they're still losing weight and they're getting great results. So it doesn't really matter. But I'm just pointing that out because like I said, the never carbers come and they get after me for talking about having more than like 50 grams of carbs, and it's silly because when you take somebody from 300 down to 100, it's an enormous difference. Now they talk about carbs and how to decode them, and I think this is kind of interesting. So Along with protein and fat, carbohydrates are one of the 3 macronutrients that you need to consume. So a lot of people get confused when you start talking about macronutrients. They're like, well, what's a macronutrient? It's going to be protein, fat, carbohydrates. Those are the 3. And you consume these in order for your body to function at its best. It's important to get these macronutrients in the right amounts. Carbs are an important fuel for your brain, liver, and muscles. These tissues can use fat and protein for energy instead. Now, that's an important thing to realize, because you hear all the time like, oh, if you're not eating carbs, then you can't function properly. That's not true. Your body is very incredible. And if you have fat on your body is very capable of using that fat to energize the brain, energize the muscles. I mean, people don't give the body near enough credit for how intelligent it actually is. However, using only fat and protein is less efficient metabolic process that can contribute to an array of symptoms, explains this guy Donald, professor of food and science and human nutrition at the University of Illinois. You can get symptoms like headaches, brain fog, confusion, fatigue. Yeah, that basically comes when you are transitioning from like a bad quality diet to the state of ketosis. Is basically referred to as the keto flu. However, the fact is that these symptoms don't remain. They come for a period of time and then they go. He goes on to say it's important to keep in mind that there are 2 different groups of carbohydrates, and my goodness, they always give they always like name out all these guys' credentials. You know, registered dietitian at Cleveland Clinic for Human Nutrition. You can get complex carbohydrates from fruits, starchy vegetables, and whole grains. You also can find carbohydrates in processed foods that provide simple sugars, cookies, cakes, soda pops, and juices. And honestly, these ones are the worst, okay? So the complex carbohydrates like the fruits and the starchy vegetables and the whole grains, like those are your better ones, okay? If people honestly just ate those and they stayed away from the cookies, cakes, sodas, and juices, then you would be so much better off, okay? And honestly, you wouldn't have half the issues that people face today, like, you know, the diabetes and blood sugar problems and cholesterol, you name it, okay? So the complex carbs are the ones that we would need to stick with, okay? Now, some complex carbs like fruits, vegetables that are higher in fiber and lower in simple sugars, apples and berries are an example of this, are associated with a slower rate of digestion. A slower rate of digestion reduces the post-meal blood sugar increase and the body's requirements for insulin. Generally, eating the right complex carbs is helpful for those concerned about diabetes and their weight. Carbs with simple sugars may be pleasurable to eat, but provide little to no nutritional value other than calories. Okay, so for instance, if you're drinking a soda pop, as they call it, you know, in the North we call it pop, in the South they call it soda. One day there will be a civil war to determine the right name for it. Okay, it's not soda pop, it's either soda or pop. We're calling it pop here in the North. Put in the comments below what you think it should be called, but I think probably some sort of civil war is going to be necessary to solve this issue, whether it's soda or pop. Growing up, we had like people that we knew from all over the country, and we would always argue this. It was like the biggest argument as a kid, all right? Okay, I digress. So let's move on. Now, looking at soda, that's obviously something that has no nutritional value, but like, you know, you can get like, let's say like a Coca-Cola, it's probably got like 35 grams of sugar in it, which is enormous. It's insane how much sugar that is, but it offers 0 nutritional benefits. That means that it's an empty calorie. That means it has no vitamins in it. It just isn't going to do anything for you. There's no fats, there's no proteins. It's just straight garbage, okay? In recent years, carbohydrates have gotten a bad rap for the part they play in blood sugar spiking snacks and sugary drinks, notes this dietitian. Most of the time, we're eating carbohydrates from the wrong sources, right? Because we want to eat those complex ones. We don't want to eat these other ones, the simple ones. Be aware that carbs can add up quickly. For instance, a standard serving of carbs is defined as 15 grams, 2 cups of brown rice, which can be a completely healthy and nutrient-packed carb choice, weighs in at about 90 grams, equal to 6 servings. At the end of the day, the average American consumes nearly 3 times the recommended daily allowance of carbs. That is insane. Okay, this is pretty interesting right here. The current recommended daily allowance of carbohydrates is 130 grams per day. That total represents the minimum rather than the optimal daily intake and covers the amount your brain and liver need for prime function plus a little extra for muscles and good measure. Okay, so here's the thing. If you're exercising, I think that like 130, I still don't think 130 is horrible. Okay, I don't think that at all. If you're eating healthier sources of carbohydrates coming from, like a potato or some fruit and things like that, I don't think that's unreasonable at all. When you're talking about getting up into the recommended amount by the what was that up here? It was that really garbage system. The dietary guidelines for Americans being upwards of like 225 to 325 grams of carbs per day, that's just stupid. Like that makes no sense. So when we look at consuming 130 grams per day, that's not a bad gig, okay? And so, it might be a little bit for some people, but I can tell you as somebody who exercises heavily, I'll be just fine on 130 grams per day. I wouldn't have any problem with that at all. And in fact, I could still easily have a very toned physique and be in great looking shape at 130 grams per day without a problem, as long as I was getting it from good sources. I'm getting it from like soda and stuff. It might be a little bit more of a struggle, but there is benefit. The carbohydrates do have benefit to the body, and they aren't just all garbage. A lot of people, the never carbers, get into this idea that like every carb is horrible and is going to destroy your health, and that's not true. Okay, drinking soda with all the sugar in it, it's not good stuff for you. Real bad. High fructose corn syrup, real bad. Processed carbohydrates with no nutritional value, thinking some white bread, white bleached flour bread. That's not good for you. But consuming some nutrient dense foods, like going back to the potato, lots of good nutrients in there, lots of good minerals. So 130 grams isn't going to hurt anybody. And I think that that's completely fine and a good number. If you're like 130 or you're 100 or less, you will easily find yourself being able to lose weight. And of course, you should be exercising during this time. Any good weight loss plan includes exercise. And now, this article at one point says, there's more than one way to lose weight. It's not just about cutting carbs, which is true. You can, cut calories. There's a lot of different things that you can do. But making sure that you do have your carbohydrates under control is important, and also having your eating under control, because you should never be cutting calories if you haven't first focused on cleaning up your diet. If you were to look at the kind of a priority system of losing weight, it would start with first, clean up your diet. Second, get exercising. Third, practice intermittent fasting. Those three things right there will take you a long ways. If you still haven't got to where you want to be by the time you do all three of those things, then go in and start counting calories. And that's the order in which you should do it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Share with me your thoughts in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.